Now, it's coming up to 12 minutes past 7. Something else that the politicians of Wales will be chewing over today, or perhaps I should say sucking on, really. It's the debate about e-cigarettes. AMs are getting set to debate the Public Health Wales bill, and specifically they'll discuss whether or not to ban e-cigarette use, so-called vaping, in enclosed and substantially enclosed public places in Wales. The idea has proved controversial. There's no real consensus on this among AMs. Some claim there's no evidence which would justify a ban. So we thought we'd try and find out what science there is and what it says about e-cigarettes. Professor Linda Bauld, who teaches health policy at the University of Stirling, joins us now. Morning, Professor.
Good morning.
How much science have we got on this? Because they're comparatively new, aren't they?
Yes, I mean, they were patented in 2004, came onto the UK market in 2010. I suppose people in Wales would really have started buying them in around 2011. I think there's a couple of things we do know very clearly. The science is developing. Lots of funders like Cancer Research UK are looking very closely at this. And the key thing is to compare it with tobacco. So we have many decades of evidence on smoking. We know that's a uniquely deadly product. It kills 1 in 2 of its regular users, and they lose on average 10 years of life. But when you look at e-cigarettes, we can be confident with all the research we have so far that they are safer than tobacco, but we don't have long-term evidence of their health impacts. But we do know a fair amount about their benefits for stopping smoking, and we also know a lot, which is directly relevant to Wales, actually, about what's in the vapour from e-cigarettes.
Yeah, now this is the bit that's likely to sway opinion one way or the other. If the vapour could be harmful to others around it, the kind of equivalent of passive smoking.
That's right, and we do know that secondhand smoke is harmful to children and to adults, and we've got decades of evidence on that. When you look at the vapour from e-cigarettes, there are now quite a few studies that look at the short-term impact on other people's health. Now, what's in an e-cigarette is nicotine, which is addictive, and that's in tobacco as well. And there are other products, but the toxicants that are in e-cigarettes are at far, far lower levels than tobacco. There's also propylene glycol, and somebody was saying to me yesterday, well, you know, I see an e-cigarette user and they produce such a lot of vapor, much more than smoke. Surely that's harmful. But that's a bit like dry ice. It's the same kind of product. So there's flavorings in there. There's definitely trace toxicants. You wouldn't necessarily want somebody who, you know, has severe asthma to be regularly exposed to that. But in terms of the studies we have, a secondhand vapor does not pose a significant risk to other people's health.
So, if somebody were considering whether or not to ban vaping in enclosed spaces, does science offer a definitive answer?
Science offers two separate answers, I think. In terms of the evidence, the short-term evidence we have to date so far, it's not legitimate to call for a ban in public places on the grounds of health harms from secondhand vapour. That's not legitimate. What the AMs, and particularly the Health Minister in Wales, have argued is that the science that they are interested in is whether e-cigarettes normalise tobacco smoking again.
That's an interesting question, isn't it? Because you are smoking. It's as simple as that. You're not smoking tobacco, but you are smoking.
Or you're vaping, which is the term that they use. And when you look at the data from Wales, in fact, and from across the UK, the people who are using these products, the adults, are almost all entirely current smokers, so they're trying to cut down or stop, or they're people who've stopped smoking, often using an e-cigarette. But the question about children in Wales is causing a lot of concern.
I mean, is there any evidence that children would regard e-cigarettes as safe and then therefore start using them directly instead of going to tobacco?
There's certainly some evidence that children are experimenting with these. The big survey in Wales conducted by colleagues at the University of Cardiff and Decipher showed that around 12% of children, teenagers in Wales, had experimented with an e-cigarette. But the important thing for me is they could find almost no regular use of e-cigarettes amongst children who'd never smoked. So I guess the question for us is, there's no evidence that e-cigarettes are moving children back to tobacco in large numbers, because tobacco smoking rates in children are going down in Wales. But if those children who were susceptible to become smokers used an e-cigarette instead, isn't that potentially a positive rather than a negative thing because of how deadly tobacco is?
So you'd be promoting giving up cigarette smoking. It's better to have vaping than not.
I think the ideal is for a child not to use any nicotine product. But if we know some are going to experiment, then I think we have to assess, relative risk.
Professor, thanks very much indeed. Professor Linda Bauld of Stirling University.
16 minutes past 7. I heard you earlier.